Hey everyone, and welcome to a new YouTube video. Today I'm going to be speaking about my journey with ulcerative colitis from start until now. When I was a kid, I've always struggled with symptoms, urgency, and majority of the time in the mornings I'll be glued to the toilet before school. But then as the day goes on, or after I've been to the toilet, I'll be fine. So we didn't really have a reason to get myself checked. Looking back now, we should have done, but we didn't know what was happening, so we just kind of left it. I was always a healthy and active kid. I was always out on my bike with my friends, the neighbours, and life was pretty good, besides the mornings before school and needing the bathroom. So fast forward to about 2018, this was when my symptoms started to get worse. It was December 2018, and I was about to go for a night out with a friend. This was quite a scary time because this was the first time I've ever lost blood. I went to the toilet before I went out and I lost blood for the first time. When you haven't experienced something like this before, you don't really know what to do. And this might sound a bit weird or quite funny to look back on now, but I was drinking dark fruit strongbow. And I thought that was the reason why. Didn't really think much of it, and I just wanted to enjoy my night. So I went out, had a few drinks, had a good time, and then it continued after that night. I was losing blood for about a week or two, so we decided to go to my GP, and they assumed it was IBS. So they prescribed me laxatives, which I didn't really need because I was also going to the toilet a lot at the time, so I felt like that wasn't very beneficial. So we went back to the doctors to try and figure out what was happening. So they actually booked me in for a colonoscopy. And looking back now, this was my biggest mistake in my ulcerative colitis journey. At this point, I weren't diagnosed, I didn't know what was happening, and my health started to improve. I cancelled the colonoscopy, and I hate myself for not going ahead with it because I would have been diagnosed 2 years earlier. And it was a tough time. My health improved, I weren't losing blood, but I was still experiencing the urgency, needing the toilet, but it wasn't as bad as it has been now. So over the next 2 years, from 2018 to 2020, I ate a lot of unhealthy food, and I know food can't cause IBD, but I do feel like the way I was eating was bad enough to make my symptoms worse. But I didn't think much of it because I weren't losing blood, so I didn't think it was that serious. But the way I was feeling, it wasn't great. So fast forward to the beginning of 2020. This was in February when I started losing blood again. This was the first time since December 2018, and it just started to get worse and worse. I was losing blood, urgency was quite bad, and I didn't know what to do. So I decided to go to A&E. This was after about 3 weeks of losing blood, and they tried to basically push me away. They just assumed it was IBS and they didn't know what to do. So I kept pushing for answers. I went back for a second time. This was like probably a few days later. I went back to A&E, and at this point they tried to push me away again. They tried to send me home, and later that day when I got home in the evening, I was in a much worse situation. I was in so much pain, I was losing blood, because at a moment like this, you don't know what's happening. And it is terrifying. And at this point, we had an ambulance come out just to check over things, see how things were going. And I ended up going back to the hospital that night. And this was one of the longest nights I've had in a hospital. A time when I was scared, anxious, worried about what was going to happen. I was at my worst. I was losing weight rapidly. At the beginning of my diagnosis, I was 16 stone. We got to the hospital, was sent through, had checks done to see what was happening, to try and figure out what the issue was. I was waiting about 36 hours for a hospital bed to be transferred onto a ward. Very, very thankful for my family who was there to support me and help me through this tough time. I was transferred onto a bed and I was there for about 2 weeks. During this time I had a flexioscopy, which is basically a colonoscopy, but it's only half of it, and it only kind of goes through half your colon. And after this procedure, they suspected that I had ulcerative colitis. This wasn't an official diagnosis, but this is what they thought I had. So at this time, when I was struggling with my health, worrying about my future, we also had the pandemic happen. This was a scary time for us all, and for me, where my life was being flipped upside down with my ulcerative colitis journey just beginning, I didn't know what to do. So I was in hospital for about 2 weeks. They wanted to monitor me and to see how I was getting on. I was then sent home. I tried to recover from this trauma that I'd been through. Being diagnosed with an incurable illness like ulcerative colitis is very scary when you have no idea what is happening to you. I had no idea what ulcerative colitis was, never heard of IBD, and this was a tough time. So over the next few months, I was losing weight rapidly. In June, they booked me in for colonoscopy, and this was when I was officially diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So in 2020, I started a biological treatment called adalimumab. This was my first treatment that I had to hopefully get me in remission. And then fast forward another year, in August 2021, I hit my lowest weight. I weighed myself and I was 8.5 stone. That was terrifying because I just thought I was losing weight. I thought I was healthy because I was looking better. Where I was overweight in the first place, I thought this was a good thing. But weighing myself and looking down at the scales and seeing 8.5 stone, this was when I felt at my worst. I was weak. I was anxious. I was depressed. Because this illness is an invisible disability, and to the public eye, you may not look unwell. You may not look like you're going through pain. But where I was underweight, at 8.5 stone, I started to notice it. So I was admitted to hospital again in August 2021, and this was when I switched my treatment. I switched over to Stelara, otherwise known as ustekinumab. I was probably on that for about 5 months, and then they switched me over to vedolizumab because Stelara wasn't working for me. I was on vedolizumab infusions for about a year, and over this time, things weren't improving. I had some good weeks, had some good days, but it wasn't enough for me to get my life back. I was then transferred onto a treatment called tofacitinib. This is a tablet, so I was no longer going into hospital for infusions, which was very beneficial because obviously going into hospital every 4 weeks, it can be quite scary. It can definitely make you very anxious, and when you've been in hospitals many times, it's not a nice place to be. So you want to try and avoid it as much as possible, but also know that sometimes you do need to go into hospital to be able to get your life back on track and be able to get treatment. And tofacitinib was probably the only treatment that actually made me feel better. It started to work quite quick, and at one point I was in remission, but unfortunately this didn't last too long for me. This was in 2023, and I was still having good days. I was still able to kind of live my life a little bit, but I wasn't at the stage where I wanted to be in life. And nothing against my IBD team or anything like that, but things weren't working, things weren't improving, and I felt like I had to take matters into my own hands. So I got a second opinion at another hospital, and this is probably the best decision that I've made throughout my ulcerative colitis journey, because they are much more knowledgeable about IBD in general, and this just makes me feel so much more comfortable when getting treatment. So this did take me about a year or two to be able to actually get seen by this other hospital to get a second opinion. This was still done on the NHS, which I'm very thankful for. But yeah, they were much more knowledgeable, much more understanding about IBD and the patients that they are treating. I was on tofacitinib for about a year and a half, and when I was transferred to this new hospital and all my medical care was under this new team, I was then booked in for another flexi-sigmoidoscopy, and this had shown that my results hadn't improved and that things had to change. A few months later, I was then transferred onto another biological treatment called upadacitinib. This is another tablet, that I take every day in the evening before I go to bed. And I feel like this works in a very similar way to my previous treatment, where it's enabling me to have some good days, but there's also bad days in between. And I'm at a stage where my life still isn't back on track and I'm not in remission. And that is quite difficult. So the results from my flexioscopy in March 2024, it showed that things weren't improving. I felt a lot more comfortable at this new hospital because I felt like I was being heard for the first time, and they knew how to understand IBD patients a lot more than my previous hospital. The hospital that I was at before was fantastic. The IBD team were lovely people and they treated me with respect and they tried to do their best to get me back in remission. But unfortunately this wasn't the case. Fast forward to November 2024, I had another flexi sigmoidoscopy, and this came to a shock to myself and my IBD team, but my results had improved. As well as it's good news that my results have improved, I feel like I haven't, because when your results have improved but you haven't, you don't really know what to do. So since then, I've been in contact with my IBD team, I've been in touch with my dietitian trying to sort out a plan to try and get my symptoms back on track. The symptoms that I have been dealing with as of lately has been urgency, stomach cramps, chronic fatigue, and just not feeling myself. I feel like I'm behind in life because this illness has taken away so much. It's taken away my career, it's taken away friendships, it's taken away just my life in general. And that is tough. It is scary to comprehend and to understand why that's happening to you. We don't know why IBD happens, but it does. And I hate that so many people are going through this. And I'm making this video to document my journey and to try and help at least one person. If I can help one person through their journey to make them feel less alone, my goal has been completed. I want to be that person that someone can relate to when they're deep down in their struggles and they have no one else to turn to. You can always message me on Instagram. I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible to try and help you through your journey, whether I can just listen to what you're going through or I can try and help in any way that I can through my experiences. The first year that I was diagnosed, I felt lonely. I felt depressed. I felt anxious. I felt like I had nowhere else to turn to. I had my family and my friends around me, and the support that they have given me has been tremendous. It has been incredible. But for someone to truly understand what I'm going through, I feel like you have to go through a very similar situation to truly get it. I want to thank you for being there and helping me along my journey and helping me become the person that I am today, and give me a platform like this to make videos. I've always wanted to make videos. I've never had a purpose or reason to make them. And why not try and make light of a situation that many people struggle with and that many people battle alone. So I am truly making these videos to make at least one person feel heard. So thank you so much for watching and listening to my journey. This is what I'm going through at the minute, and I wanted to share it from the start. So if you want me to make any videos on any topic, drop them down in the comments below and I'll try and make that as soon as possible. Whether it's life related, chronic illness related, I'll try my best to make a video that can help you. We will get through this together and we can help one another through this tough time. Take care and I'll speak to you guys soon.